Good evening. It's 6. Looks like we have everybody here. Going to start the Transportation Advisory Board meeting for June 9th, 2025. Roll call, please.
Chair Lehner.
Here.
Board Member Wicklund.
Here.
Vice Chair McKee-Burrows.
Here.
Board Member McNerney.
Here.
Board Member Kalkofer.
Great. We acknowledge that Longmont sits on traditional territory of the Cheyenne, Arapaho, Ute, and other indigenous peoples. We honor the history and the living and spiritual connection that the first people have with this land. It is our commitment to face the injustices that have happened when the land was taken and to educate our communities, ourselves, and our children to ensure that these injustices do not happen again. Great. Any comments or corrections to the minutes from the preceding meeting of May 12th?
I just have a comment. I wasn't able to find the minutes. I wasn't able to find the packet on the portal.
We have some changes, but it's out there now.
Yeah, it would, no. It would be great if we could have those to review the weekend before our Monday meeting. If we could go back to that arrangement, I'd appreciate it.
Great. Just to clarify that there was a glitch and there was something where it was just the agenda, the 2-page agenda, but the HTML was out there, I believe, and it had the minutes attached to it. So that HTML has all the links, and it's not evident. So I'm not saying, I'm not trying to defer blame, but we will get it settled for next month. But there was an issue, and the HTML has a link, but you have to kind of click on it, and that opens up the document. I had the same issues though, so we'll work on that for next time. Thanks.
Okay, any other comments on the minutes?
Just reading them now.
If we could get a motion or, motion to approve.
I motion to approve the Transportation Advisory Board minutes from May 12th, 2025.
I will second that motion.
Great. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, let's move on. Phil, we'll go to communications from staff.
Yeah, real quick, you'll notice there's a little difference in the way we're sitting tonight. And Jim is out of town right now, but this is very purposeful. I just want to let folks know that I plan on retiring July 31st. So that'll be my last day with the city. So I'm excited to turn things over to Kaylee in the interim as they look for a new transportation planning manager. And Kaylee and Kyle will actually be kind of running the show. I think Jim's going to take a back seat as well for a little while and kind of pass the torch, baton, whatever you want to pass to the next generation of great planners and engineers. So we're excited about this. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kaylee just to kind of go through, and we have a couple people to present items from staff.
Good evening. Kaylee Fallon, Transportation Planner. So first communication from staff, I'll invite Ben Ortiz up for Bike to Work Day update.
I didn't know we were doing that.
I had you on the schedule, sorry.
Sorry. Good evening. Ben Ortiz, Transportation Planner. I did make an update last month, and it's substantially the same. We will be having a city will be hosting a Bike to Work Day breakfast station over here at the Civic Center Plaza. And we're going to have roughly a dozen organizations attending. So it's going to be much more of a festival environment compared to years past. And so We hope you will all attend, and we look forward to seeing you there. But next month, or after the event, we're hoping to come back and bring you some metrics in terms of how many people actually participated, and et cetera. And we'll see if our efforts actually panned out in terms of increasing the number of riders. So thank you. Stay tuned.
And then next we have an update on the public walk audit from Dylan.
All right, everybody. I'll be talking about this a little bit more during our presentation, but on July 26th from 10 to 12:30, I'll be hosting a walk audit from the rec center to Burlington, and we'll be using a very simple walk audit tool to try and make some community scientists and just gather some very basic data and start having conversations about safety and just the built environment design. So hope if you can make it, you'll be there.
And then just one point of just one question.
Quick question, real quick.
Can you tell us a little bit more about what the walk audit will entail? Like, is he literally just going to walk and talk, or like what is that kind of
Sure.
involved?
Yeah, so the plan is we'll meet at the rec center. It'll be a walk audit that includes city staff. So we'll have some subject matter experts there that'll help facilitate the walk audit. We'll be crossing 287, and then we'll be essentially trying to make like a little route that will take into account some areas that may not be the safest. So we'll be doing that very carefully. We'll be having discussions about safety, and then seeing if we can tie that into potential improvements. Yeah.
And then just one point of clarification. I think we mentioned this last month, but just to reiterate, that Bike to Work Day is Wednesday, June 25th from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. So just want to clarify that. But that concludes the communications from staff portion.
Great. We can move to public invited to be heard if there's anybody here. Looks like we do.
Yep. All right. So I just have a couple of things I want to say. These little bike maps
Hang
are.
on, just a second. Why don't you go ahead and give us your name?
My name's Ross Sterrett, live at 2161 Steel Street. A couple of little things. These little bike maps are fantastic. I always have one with me. These need to be like everywhere so that people can pick them up, actually carry them around. The big ones are nice, but these are great to have with you for, like, oh, I want to get from here to there. I'm already out. I don't have the big map because it's big. On a slightly less positive note, I think that a lot of our bike infrastructure isn't visible, and that results in things like close passes and people not biking when they otherwise would consider it. And so things that I've seen in other cities is that they'll use some brightly colored markings for like bike lanes, and they especially do like a zebra stripe across the roadways. You especially see that with green in like New York and Denver. And I think, if we had more visibility, more people would be like, oh, I can bike to the store. I can, like, it is relatively safe to bike in this area, when they thought that it was just a gutter. And that's all I really have for you guys today. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to our information items. It looks like the first one will be the Vision Zero Action Plan update.
Yeah, Chair Lehner, we actually we're going to switch up the agenda if it's okay with you all, and actually have the presentation on Colorado 119 first, just because that's a quicker presentation, and then the Vision Zero update will be a little bit more of a lengthy presentation. So if that's okay with your permission, we will switch the agenda items. Great. So we will have the first informational item, then we'll have Alex Donaldson come up and talk about the Colorado 119 update.
Well, good evening, board members. I'm Alex Donaldson. I'm a senior civil engineer in the engineering services group. And one of the things I've been working on is working with CDOT on this really exciting project to make improvements at the intersection of Hover Street and Colorado 119. You might remember I was here in February with a few of my colleagues to talk about this project along with many other projects when we did our CIP roundup. And as part of that presentation, we kind of realized after getting feedback from some of the board members that there was an interest in learning a little bit more about this project and the current events, and that also a lot has been happening on this project as well in the last 6 months or so. So I'm here tonight to give you an update and give you the latest and greatest on our effort with CDOT, and I'm going to start out with giving a little bit of background on the project and how we got to where we are today. So just kind of start out, this project, the genesis of this project was a successful RAISE grant, or an awarded RAISE grant, that was a combined grant from CDOT, Boulder County, and the city of Longmont. We were awarded RAISE grant funds to the tune of $25 million back in 2023. And so we're working on getting that money out the door. You probably have seen some of the work that's being done as part of this project further south towards Boulder. The project is progressing from south to north. And so right now we're working on the very last part of the project, which is the infrastructure improvements for Colorado 119 and Hover Street. So how did we know what we wanted to put into the grant? Well, a while ago we did a really great study called the Southwest Longmont Operations Study. And coming out of that effort, we kind of realized there was a big opportunity to make some major improvements to not just vehicle capacity and movement in Southwest Longmont, and particularly here at Hover Street and 119, but also to improve this intersection in this part of town for people who are using alternative modes, active modes, so walking, biking, transit also is in that equation. And so coming out of that study, we had this concept that was included in the grant. And the key feature of this concept, you can see here in this figure, is that the southwestbound lanes heading to Boulder, so leaving Longmont, would go underground through an underpass underneath Hover Street and then resurface on Colorado 119 and be on the way to Boulder. And that one of the other interesting things about this original concept is it also split that underpass area, not just for vehicles, but also a portion of it was for a separated bike facility that would also go underground, get underneath Hover Street and connect people to the Colorado 119, we call it the Bikeway, which is a huge improvement that's being built as part of this project that will be a bike route. It's a solid surface bike path that would go all the way down to Boulder, and it'd be a major regional connection for not just the city of Longmont, but all the communities in between here in Boulder. So this basically the last 12 months, CDOT, their project team, along with the city staff that have been working on this, we've really, the rubber's hit the road, so to speak, on trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to build this? And that what we found is that the gap between the ideal and real was pretty large, with a couple of particular areas that kind of amounted to be fatal flaws to this original concept with the underground underpass. So just to kind of briefly touch on what made this a difficult challenge to overcome with engineering, you can kind of see there's the first one I have in that red dotted box in the lower left corner in the figure. Unfortunately, we did a little bit of good work that ended up being a problem later on. That box is highlighting the city's existing underpass underneath State Highway 119, and this is a really great feature for people that are crossing 119 today. It's super useful. Unfortunately, what it means is that if we were to build this concept to go underneath Hover Street, we are starting to get into roller coaster territory in terms of getting people low enough to get under Hover Street and then back up to catch 119 with those grades. So you go really down, really up. It would be make for a very uncomfortable drive, especially at the speed limits that CDOT is targeting for this regional corridor. So that was kind of the first hint that maybe we're going to have some serious issues delivering this concept. And the second one that we ran into that was really the killer was that we learned that this design would conflict with a major water main for the city's water department here that you can see in that yellow dotted box on the east side of Hover Street there. It runs north-south approximately. And that, it wasn't necessarily a matter of could we do it? We absolutely could do it. But the problem is that, there's costs involved, not just in the actual construction relocation of this water main, but also the ability for Longmont to provide utilities to the people that live in this corner of town. It's really important to make sure we're meeting the expectations of our ratepayers and utility users here in the city. And so just the challenge of trying to keep that in operation to a reasonable standard while we were doing the relocation for this underpass just wasn't realistic. So we carried this design, this underground concept, at least in part to what CDOT calls the 30% level or the FIR level. And that was what they sent out for technical analysis to all the partners back in January. And this happened right before I came to visit you all in February when we realized that we had done the cost estimates and looked at the buildability, constructability of this concept, and we found that we were about $10 million over the amount of money that we had set aside in this program to deliver this intersection. So where does that leave us now? We finished up that 30% and realized that we needed to kind of go back to the drawing board. And so CDOT took a step back, and what we have now is a new concept. And this is something that I mentioned in the February visit was just sort of a beginning idea. And now we have a little bit of a clearer picture in terms of what CDOT's actual proposal is to deliver something that still meets the project's goals and priorities, but does it in a way that doesn't conflict with quite as many really critical pieces of infrastructure that exist. So the new concept you can see here is that we're going to exchange the underpass that we had before for a vehicle bridge. So as same general idea as you are leaving Longmont on State Highway 119, you will be separated by going up and over Hover Street using a bridge. And that this still has the advantages that the underpass did in terms of separating traffic out and relieving some of the pressure to serve so many different movements at that intersection. And so that still achieves the goal for the vehicle side. We also are really searching to figure out how to make this even though it's going to be a big bridge, we're trying really hard to build it in such a way that it will seem still, there'll be good visibility and it'll be a nicely lit intersection in terms of during the day. There's not going to be a lot of blocked sight lines and things like that as you're going through. And the way we've done that is by stretching the bridge out and doing 3 shorter spans instead of 1 really long span. Those blue rectangles that you can see that I sketched in the figure there, those are the areas that will have foundations. So you can kind of see that if you did just one big one, it might bring everything tighter and be a little bit clunkier to see. So I mentioned earlier that the bridge goes a long way towards maintaining or keeping our project priority of separating the traffic that was one of the goals of the underpass. But where does that leave us with bicycle and pedestrian improvements? Well, that's something we've been working really hard with CDOT to not lose sight of as we've shifted gears with how we're going to deliver this project. Going from underground to above ground definitely poses some new challenges for making sure that we still are getting the desired improvements for bicycle and pedestrian modes in this intersection. And so our strategy has been to decouple the improvements. So instead of doing everything right in one push pin on a map, we've sort of zoomed out a little bit and looked at what is nearby to improve sort of the network area around Hover Street and 119 instead of just exactly at that intersection. Let me show you what I mean. So this picture here you can see if I could extend this television to be a square and have it go up towards the ceiling, you would see that the Hover Street and 119 intersection is just directly north here. And that underpass that exists today that goes underneath 119 that I mentioned just a little while ago as being a hurdle to the underpass concept, we're now leveraging as an asset to improve pedestrian and bicycle connectivity to the bike path. So let's say you're riding your bike in from Niwot and you're coming in close to Longmont and you want to continue, let's say, to the left-hand greenway. Well, in the existing condition, you'd have to go underneath 119 and then make your way to an intersection, go across Hover somewhere else, maybe at Pike Street, and then make your way back out. But with this improvement here that we're proposing to make as part of this project, that we're going to have CDOT make as part of this project, is to continue that sort of shortcut for bicycles and pedestrians by building a hawk signal that crosses Hover Street. So you can see that red markup. That would be how you would be able to cross not only underneath 119, but you'd come back up and get across Hover Street and sort of bypass the really busy intersection. We're also looking at the north side of the intersection as well in terms of network improvements. This is the intersection of Clover Basin and Hover Street, so the next light north of that major intersection at Hover and 119. Kind of to, again, walk you through, if you were on a bicycle and you decided to stay on the new bike path instead of going underneath our underpass that we have out there today, this would be the first stoplight that you really can't just keep riding past. You have to either cross the road or change directions. So that gives us a great opportunity to improve infrastructure for not only just making it safer, but also to lower the stress level of someone that is working their way through this intersection. And we do that by improving the way that the curbs meet the road, moving the stop bar and the crosswalks back for better visibility, so on and so forth. So this is another area that we've proposed improvements to have CDOT construct as part of this project in lieu of those major intersection improvements that we had included in the original underground concept. And then finally, Phil, I feel like, has been a great asset for this, so I'm really going to miss him. But this is one area that he and I have worked together with CDOT, and our goal with this is to really keep the project going and focusing on making regional connections, not just to the city at Hover Street and 119, but also to consider our entire network, bike network. So what we've kind of seen and are continuing to monitor as we study and try to learn how our bicycle network is being used, we're finding that, a lot of people, that if they want to go to some part of Longmont, that they don't just go in a straight line there, right? They use our network of greenways or on-road bike facilities to make those connections. So that red box you can see there is our intersection that we're improving. That's Hover Street and 119. But you can see these blue arrows on here that show, okay, well, let's say, you could connect using the Lobo Trail connection, which will be improved. That's one of the cutouts. They're hard kind of to see at this scale. But this handout from CDOT highlights those improvements that are happening somewhere else in the project that will still improve the regional connection to Longmont's bicycle network. So that's one example. And then also improvements in terms of connectivity to Airport Road there that goes north-south and gives access to the west side of Longmont as well as connecting to the Greenway. And also, too, this is a great chance for us to work with CDOT and also our own sort of proposed bicycle network improvements in order to kind of see how we can best leverage this project, not just to make improvements in one intersection, but also to think about the network as a whole. So that covers the major updates. I still wanted to give all of the board members just kind of a general update in terms of the project schedule. I mentioned before that CDOT's original concept had gotten to the 30% level, but with this redesign, they've sort of reset that. So city staff are anticipating in September sort of a redo of that 30% technical review. And so we'll be sure to give lots of great comments that will be circulated widely through the technical staff in the engineering services and beyond. And then with that, that's our next anticipated milestone. That's the next step. And then big picture construction for this project is still targeting the beginning of spring in 2026. So late Q2, so around April, May, would be when there's signs of construction happening out there. It's not necessarily going to be that they're going to go out there and tear things up right away, but maybe start moving utilities, marking things. There'll be activity, and the public will be able to see activity happening. And then the construction duration, CDOT's goal is to conclude construction by the end of the construction season in 2027. So that'd be, October, November, somewhere in there. It's hard to predict from this point in the project. So I will keep monitoring this project, and I will be back, I'm sure, to tell you more about this project as we get our design kind of fully realized. But I hope that was informative, and I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a few questions. So right now, there's pedestrian crossing on Hoover and 119 going, I guess, east-west, north. It's basically on three sides. Would the new plan have any crosswalks, or would those be eliminated?
So that's a great question. And that's something that it was still being discussed. We're really confident, I'd say at this point, that a crossing north-south on the east side of the intersection will still exist. And that'll be better than what's out there today, because the bridge gives us an opportunity to have kind of like a gigantic pedestrian island, basically. So your crossing distance will be shorter. You only have to get across a couple lanes of traffic, get to that island, and then you'll cross the right-hand turn lane that's on the far side of the bridge before you get to the north side. As far as the other crossings, the crossing east-west on the south side is one that's still being discussed. We're kicking around the idea of potentially removing that in lieu of sending people down to this hawk signal that's been proposed. But that's not something that has been solidified or decided one way or the other. And then, if I'm remembering correctly, the new, maybe I can go back here, might be able to tell from my markup. But I believe we've also eliminated the crosswalk on east-west on the north side of the intersection as well. And so that would be something that you would, again, have to make a crossing using the new infrastructure that is being improved instead of using the existing one that you might see today.
And is the lanes, I guess, on the south side of this intersection, would we be widening the road there?
So the roadway the footprint is not changing substantially. The number of lanes is going to stay relatively the same. I think the big change that we're going to see is that there'll be a future option for a double left. If you're heading northbound on Hoover Street, you want to go towards Boulder. It's hard to see exactly here, but the setup that they've got right now is a single left turn lane with basically a blocked lane next to it. It would have that striping that says don't go here, but there would be enough geometry to add that second left turn. And that is coming from kind of CDOT's desire to improve the capacity of this intersection in terms of a network node on the state highway system. Hoover Street is very busy, as I'm sure all of you are aware, especially with the development in southwest Longmont. And so that's one of the ways that they're trying to tackle the demand in that part of town.
One other issue with that double left going northbound is that if you don't do the double left, currently we have stacking that would take you in the morning. Well, in the mornings there used to be stacking. I don't think it's as bad now, but would actually use that center turn lane and impede the crossing that we'd like to put in there. So the double lefts help alleviate some of that stacking that was happening, eighth of a mile back. So that helps too.
Cool, thank you. For the hawk signal, would this be the first hawk signal in Longmont?
That's a great question. Kyle, do you know if we have any hawk signals in the city?
So we're talking about hawk signals that's coming through our Vision Zero action plan. We're going through a few different concepts of a protected pedestrian or bicycle signal. One is a hawk, which is the two red lights on top and then a yellow on the bottom, that top corner, as well as an option for a RFRB is used in some situations, usually lower speed. Not particularly recommended at this location due to volume and speeds. One option we do have, which we do have in the city right now at one location at approximately Gay and 9th, would be a just pedestrian signal, which is a traditional 3 signal head. So you got red, yellow, green. Those, you press the button, it automatically goes, people are across the road. I will say with hawk signals, there's been some pushback from different communities across the nation, just with having the information of what you're supposed to do at those signals. I live down in Thornton currently, and there's a lot of them throughout that city, and people seem to get it. But I've seen in several other communities where people are really confused of what to do with these areas, even with improved signage and education programs. So through our Vision Zero program, we're looking to see what the community would like to see and what would be more digestible for better and safer movements.
So just to add on to that, thank you, Alex. On this hawk signal, the speeds coming off of 119 are pretty high.
Yep.
So I notice on 119 at J Road, 63rd, along there, I can't tell you the number of vehicles either at rush or even during the middle of the day that run the lights because they're going so fast they can't slow down. And now we're going to have a hawk signal for pedestrians and cyclists to cross 119. Is there any concern from CDOT or anybody else in terms of the safety with the speeds coming into town?
So I think there might have been a misunderstanding. I might have misrepresented this or misspoke, but the hawk signal is across Hover Street. Yes, yeah. And because you're 100% correct. Yeah, it would not be safe to try to do anything on the grade on 119. They do, yes. Yeah, for sure. But it's a little bit of a different animal on Hover versus State Highway 119. But if you look at the picture on the left here, it's hard to see, but in the kind of the northwest corner or the upper left corner, you can see a little bit of 119 there. And that's where the city has constructed that existing underpass, and that will remain in place and work hand in hand with this Hover Street hawk signal to get people across both streets from the west side of 119.
My concern with hawk signals is they're not very popular here in Colorado, and I'm nervous that people aren't familiar how to use them. So I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I would like a red, yellow, green, because everybody understands what that is. I would not myself cross this intersection with a hawk signal. So just something to keep in mind. Going back to the intersection, the Clover Basin, if you can go to the next slide. Where would, if you're taking the bike path from Boulder, where would you end up as a cyclist? Would it be on the southwest corner?
That's correct. Yeah, if you were taking the new CO 119, the bikeway, sort of the last stop is that large concrete area on that southwest corner there of the intersection.
And what's the reasoning for pushing the crosswalk back and straightening it out?
So I think the idea here, these are still very early. That's a great question, and it's one I've wondered myself as I got this concept back from CDOT. Our original ask when we did these was to move the stop bar back, but leave the crosswalk where it is, just to separate pedestrians and vehicles a little bit better and improve that visibility. My guess is that they might have run it through and try to improve visibility by also moving the stop bar and the crosswalk back. I don't know exactly the answer to that question, but that's definitely a comment I'll pass along and share. I have the same concern with you. Gotcha. I think it's lengthening it seems like it might be going contrary to what we want to accomplish here.
Right, exactly. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. It definitely really puts a picture in my head of what this is actually going to look like. Other previous drawings were always a little confusing to me. But then real quick, back at the 119 in Hover, you said potentially removing pedestrian crossings. So on the north and then potentially the south, crossing Hover east-west. Okay. So then I just wonder... on a bike, it's fine. You could go to the hawk signal or whatever it becomes. But then what about, how much distance does that increase someone walking?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'm pretty sure Clover Basin, I'm not 100% sure of what the distance is, but it is relatively close. It's close enough that when we do the modeling for the signal, we are really paying attention to make sure that the lineup doesn't extend into Clover Basin and Hover. I would estimate that it's probably somewhere between a third and a quarter of a mile. Okay. But also one of the big drivers of that change is the studying and research that CDOT has done with this intersection in terms of pedestrian demand. The message that we've got from CDOT on a couple different occasions with this project is that there's no one out there crossing Hover Street right now as a pedestrian, and that is being
Probably because it's unsafe and
that
it feels
and
unsafe.
that is
yeah.
exactly what we have told them in response. And that's why we're building this project, right? Is to make it a more amenable area for someone that is walking or biking. But that might be part of why they've thought, well, we'll move people to the north. It seems like that's the destination for people anyway. And then especially with the enhanced trail infrastructure that's going to take you, instead of dropping you off right at Hover and 119, you may feel more compelled to keep going anyway, and then cross at Clover Basin where there's the entrance to the mall.
Okay. And then also on the hawk signal, is there a way to maybe use some ways to slow down a vehicle at that section instead of just trusting a light? So meaning like a chicane, maybe slow down the speed limit, where it's like, oh no, you're entering a zone where there might be people crossing, rather than just a straightaway for a car.
Yeah, certainly there's lots of different kind of fine details that still need to be ironed out with exactly how this crossing will work. I've even seen in some of these meetings that people have pitched the idea of the delineators is sort of in kind of giving you something that's raised and more visible. There's definitely a challenge to be addressed there with some real high quality engineering in terms of, we don't just want to stick a light on it and call it good. That it needs to be a holistic approach to, okay, well, what we've done the visual, but we also need to do the physical and the other elements in the built environment. I also believe too, I'm not 100% sure. I'm trying to recall without the plans in front of me, but I do know that because we're adding that extra turn lane, I think things do narrow down slightly coming in and out of Hover there, so those narrower lanes might help. And then I also think we get a little bit of help as well with the redesign. The turn coming off of 119 is sharp enough that it really reduces speed. And so if there's a way that we can leverage that geometry to help keep those speeds slow and not encourage people to try to do their best Formula One impression where they come off and then really hit the gas. So
then what about going north along Hover? Because it's, once you get kind of out of town, it's all 2-lane 95th, and then as you get into where the apartment buildings are, then it widens to 2 lanes each direction. I'm wondering if there's also space where maybe are 2 lanes necessary going north until you get closer to the intersection.
Sure. Yeah, I think we're constrained a little bit in that I think there's a lot of demand that is using Pike Street and then turning onto Hover Street. I think north of Pike up to 119 is a real big demand area. So I think that's what's driving the width of Hover Street in that location. But yeah, certainly outside of that, Hover Street definitely becomes a lot less, of an urban environment. So yeah, that's something we'll take a look at. And I know, the cities in our transportation mobility plan, that's something that we're really focusing on, not just building just to build. We need to have a purpose for all the lane width that we have and the pavement width, and make sure we're maximizing it for all the modes that we have. And we'll continue to apply that philosophy when working with CDOT on this project.
Yep, I agree. Thank you.
So I'm curious, in developing this kind of new revamped plan, what kind of lens was applied to it in terms of the safety? Like, was pedestrian bike safety the major driving force between this, or is it more car-centric?
So I would say, if I can speak candidly about our partners at CDOT, they've done a great job, I think, balancing their concern for safety for not just the active modes, but also for vehicles. As a state highway agency, a state DOT, they are definitely tilted more towards moving more vehicles and freight than we are here at the city. And so working with them to find the balance and to kind of bring them over to where we're looking at this project, which is to focus mostly on that vulnerable road users and active modes. That's been one of the challenges that Phil and I have faced. But For CDOT, I think that if they were here, they'd really want to highlight that separating the vehicles that are leaving Longmont and heading to Boulder, putting them up and over on a bridge that separates the high-speed vehicles on the highway, at least in one direction, goes a long way towards reducing conflict points with everyone. So whether it's vehicle to vehicle, vehicle to pedestrian, vehicle to bicycle, that will make the intersection safer. It will also make it visually a lot larger too, and so that there's some trade-offs there in terms of what it looks like we're building something that is for improving capacity, and that is one of the benefits of this project. That CDOT would want to highlight that as well. But ultimately, I think the separation is where the safety benefit comes in the biggest quantity as part of this project.
Okay. Just so I'm clear, is the bridge going to have any other infrastructure other than for cars, or is it just for cars?
So the proposal is to just do vehicles on the bridge. And to add some extra context, CDOT did provide a proposal that did include an attached pedestrian overpass as well. Unfortunately, when we were looking at that concept, the way that you would connect to that bridge is that you would walk essentially all the way to Hover Street, get on the bridge, turn around, and walk a quarter mile back opposite the direction you want to go, and to turn around again, go over the street, and then repeat the process on the far side. And for the city staff that was working on this project, it seemed to us that out of direction travel would mean that we'd built something that people would see and they'd go, no thanks, and they would find another way to cross at grade, or potentially even jaywalk or something like that. That would be a less safe method of crossing the street. And so that was what led us to more of the network approach. And that's why the bridge concept as it is right now has only vehicle access.
I should just mention also that we're holding space for a future underpass just north of that intersection for bike and ped, because though they can't afford it now, doesn't mean we can't build it later. So we're going to hold space to make sure that we're not precluding that from happening in the future.
Okay. If I'm remembering correctly, there's not going to be a way for pedestrians to cross on the north side, like a crossover. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Because of the new bridge. So it sounds like there's... Potentially later. Yeah, so potentially later. But right now, like as it stands, pedestrians are going to have to go south, cross over, and then go north again.
That's right, yeah. Or go north one block up to cross over at Clover Basin Drive.
Okay. Is that a shorter distance than just making a bridge?
I have not done that. I would say that they're probably pretty comparable, though. The bridge was very, very large in terms of the switchback that was required to get to the elevation to cross over the street.
The other issue too was for bicycles, making those hairpin turns to get onto the next level or to make that grade just seemed too extreme, especially with e-bikes or larger e-bikes. So
yeah.
Yeah, and then the other major concern too with the pedestrian connection was that because it would be on the shaded northern side of the bridge, it would really be a challenge to deal with during snow and ice events, especially with the narrower width. It's not something you could easily drive a vehicle on because, like Phil said, there's those tight hairpin switchbacks to get up there. So it just really was. It didn't have a lot of really shining qualities, I feel like, in terms of operation and keeping it in use.
yeah, I think what we first saw when we were talking about it was people just running across Hover anyway to avoid all that switchback. So I think what we're hearing from this group is let's look at that northern, something that crosses on the north leg at grade. And so to start maybe rethinking that and put that back into the plan. The one that goes up on the west side, on the southwest, if you think about how that extends, it's basically kind of no person's land, I guess, from the Oscar Blues liquids and solids. If you go north, there's nothing in between there except for drainage facilities. So what we thought was if people cross at the Hawk signal, that's really the best place to cross. It really doesn't make sense to bring people up on that west leg of Hover south of 119 because it's all just, it's just an area with, it's landscape. Yeah, it's just landscape and there's nowhere to really go. So if we can do some really good wayfinding and make sure people can find their way quickly through this, and that we give lots of direction for people going through and north. We thought that would be a better way to get people through this area. And the same could be said as you're heading south on Ken Pratt Boulevard or 119 on the north edge. How do we get people quickly to Clover Basin so they're not going all the way and then having to come back north? There's a diagonal through that, through the old Twin Peaks Mall, the Village at the Peaks. I call it Twin Peaks Mall because it really is that older stuff that's still over there, the IHOP and all those different things. So if we can get people through there and get them quickly to Clover Basin and then cross and then into the area where the bike path starts, I think we're better off.
Okay. It just kind of seems to me that cars are really the focus here on moving them through as fast as possible. And there really doesn't seem like there's any accommodation at this intersection for bikes and peds at all, really. Like they are being forced to go out of their way to move around this area, going down, south, or north, either way.
I will say to Alex's credit that at every meeting we've had with CDOT, I think it's been every meeting, he mentions the transportation mobility plan and how we have pedestrians at the first tier, bicyclists at the second tier, and that our city is only going to accept if you look at this intersection with those parameters. And unfortunately, this is still the best we've gotten back from them based on costs and engineering and all those different things. So we push it at every meeting, but again, it's pushing against the state entity that really wants to make sure that those cars and sees the value from this grant to be for cars first, as you mentioned. So we push at a city level for a different outlook.
Well, I hope you keep really pushing, because right now it doesn't feel like it's any improvement for the pedestrians and bikes at all, really. Like, I was really excited about the plan originally when there's going to be all this separation and you're going to get through this without having to cross any major roads, but now it looks like you're going to have to cross even more roads to get to where you want to go. Instead of just being a straight shot, you're going to have to make maybe 2 crossings and way off your path potentially.
Yeah, and you're understanding exactly the frustration and the effort that we've gone to try to steer the project back to something that serves every mode as best as we can. And I will say this figure here at the end, I think, is the best illustration that I have sort of with the approach that we've gotten CDOT to come along a little bit more with, which is that network approach where we use this project as an opportunity to help people get to where they're going without necessarily needing to stop at Hover and 119. So like Phil said, with being able to cut through the mall or being able to get around with the underpass, I think in a perfect world, if I could build this project exactly, with the vision I have in mind, is that there'd be such good signage and navigation and wayfinding that if you were a cyclist or a pedestrian, you probably aren't saying, I'm going to go visit Hover and 119 today. You're thinking, I'm going to go pick up my child from daycare, or I'm going to go to the grocery store. And my hope is that the signage and wayfinding we're able to build as part of this project will be able to help someone like that navigate in a way that they don't have to visit this really big vehicle intersection. Because even if we built the underpass and there was a great opportunity to have separation there, the fact of the matter is that even separated intersections are still noisy and there's a lot of concrete and it's kind of an intimidating place to be. So that this is what we've tried to pivot towards in light of CDOT changing the concept. And just know that we're continuing to try to represent those interests. That's the most important thing for us on the city side. It's the nature of sort of the group project, whether it's high school or doing something with the state DOT. It feels like it's always a little bit of a balancing act between doing it one way or the other way, depending on who's the one that is speaking.
Okay. Are these on this map here? Is the blue arrows? Is that bikes, like major passive bikes moving?
Yeah, this is major movements or like regional network assets for the bicycle mode. And so like at the very bottom there, you can see underneath that red box, that dark blue arrow that sort of sweeps to the right off of 119. That's the Lobo Trail that connects to the left-hand greenway. So let's say, you're coming in from like Niwot or Gun Barrel, and you wanted to go somewhere on the south side of Ken Pratt Boulevard, that instead of coming to Hover Street and making a turn to the east and going, that way, that you'd say, oh, I'm going to avoid that intersection by taking this new connection off the bikeway to the left-hand greenway and going that way instead of visiting that intersection.
Okay.
We should also say that this map is draft. It is not
Yes.
finished. We've made many comments about the additional routes and bike ways that are not shown on this, and how people kind of want to come in maybe into downtown. And there's
it's
facilities
like
along
missing
Hover that help as well. So there's a lot missing from this map. We've made a lot of comments that are not reflected yet, and we're still doing some work. So
Okay. I was
Yeah.
going to say, like, what about the middle of town?
Right. Yeah. It's certainly. Well, and there's new projects that the city's planning on building this summer that I, talked about in February that are not highlighted on this map. That I feel like is an opportunity that we could show that as well. But yeah, just this morning I was talking to CDOT's project team about the next version of this map. So still a work in progress. And thanks for your patience as we kind of continually update you on with the best we have on hand as this project continues to evolve and design.
there's also options for public comments. So we'll send those links to you so you can make those comments directly.
Okay. So the crossing on South Hover, what do you call it? The Hawk. Hawk signal. I've never heard that before, but I can't see many people wanting to do that, to be honest. Like, it doesn't seem like, as Taylor pointed out, a light's not really gonna improve safety. It just seems like it's just going to be something for cars to drive through, not gonna force them to slow down necessarily, unless there's some action. And I don't know, I'm just not a fan of this at all. It's just, I mean, I would never take my kids through this because it's just not safe for them. Like, it seems like it's a disaster waiting to happen.
Sure, and that's important feedback, I think, for us to share with CDOT, that we need to go as much as we can towards providing something that is the safest crossing here. If we really want to have a designated route that gets you across Hover Street, we got to make sure that we're building something that meets that the criteria for a family, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like raising it maybe, or I don't know. There's lots of options for making it safer. Obviously, under would be the best, of course, but that's the most expensive. But as that is sitting right now, that I would never use it, and I bike every single day. So the Clover Creek, I don't understand how that helps at all, really, honestly. Like, it doesn't, you're not reducing crossing distances. All you're doing is curb ramp improvements, from what I can tell, moving the crossing a little bit further back, but it doesn't seem like it's really helping anyone, unless I'm missing something.
Yeah, and these are, obviously still things that we're coming up with more detail on in terms of what improvements we can make. I think with this one, we're constrained in terms of, we have to fit inside the greater scope of the project, the budget, things like that. But yeah, again, those are helpful comments to hear in terms of, we maybe could do a little bit better in explaining or having CDOT explain what the purpose is of these improvements and exactly what they can help us with. When we broached this idea originally of making improvements at Clover Basin with CDOT, I was like the things that you highlighted was shortening those distances. We potentially, we're like, is there the potential for a median island for someone to stop at if they need more time to cross the intersection, because these are wide crossings or long crossings. And again, this is still something that it's evolving, and we're still kind of the early levels in terms of what exactly it is that we're gonna finish with the design. Is still a work in progress. But again, those comments are very helpful. I'd like to see more here as well. I agree.
Yeah, again, it's just not really changing anything, and that pedestrians and bikes are still going to have the same issues as they have right now at this intersection. So yeah, I'm glad you're still working on it, because as it stands right now, it's not great. So thank you.
Yeah, a lot of work still to do.
Thanks for the update, Alex. There's a relatively large residential neighborhood nearing completion. It's being constructed in the southwestern quadrant of Pike and Hover. I believe it's called Lupin. And I'm wondering if all of these design aspects, including left turn lane lengths and placement of the hawk signal, do they take into account the full build-out vehicle trip generation and pedestrian trip generation from that neighborhood?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Obviously, there's always the challenge of trying to predict the future, especially long term. But oftentimes, we get opportunities where things are already in construction. We can see that they're happening out there. To my understanding, other than if there's comments that have been received by CDOT or might be made by our development review staff in the future when we review the 30% design, my understanding is that when CDOT is anticipating volumes in the future for the purpose of turn lane lengths and capacity for storing vehicles as they wait for a red light, for example, that what they do is they have a model that tells them, not quite at that level of granularity, that, hey, this neighborhood's going to be done in 2027. But what it does say is we would expect the number of vehicles using this intersection to rise some certain amount each year until we get to the end of where we've simulated. And I believe their simulation now goes all the way to 2045 for this intersection. So those would be the volumes when we do the design with CDOT that they're trying to anticipate, how much storage space are we going to need 20 years from now, which the model would take into account both this specific neighborhood that you referred to, but also just the regional growth in general. It's a very popular place to build a home and move to, which is a great, I always say it's a great problem to have for us in the transportation industry. It's we're going to be busy just trying to keep up with the new development.
Mm-hmm. It seems like there'd be a lot of travel demand from that neighborhood to Boulder in the AM peak.
Yeah, and you're right about that. The models that we discussed a couple weeks ago was the first modeling effort that they shared with us for this new proposed intersection. I'll go back to where the left hand turns are kind of odd here for sure, and so there's been a lot of attention that's been paid to how exactly they're going to make it work with those left-hand turns. And so we're going to get an opportunity to comment on that traffic simulation that they did for the performance of the queues and things like that. And I'm hopeful that city staff will be able to pinpoint exactly what we need to tell CDOT, and I will make sure to pass along the comment about the new neighborhood nearby that we need to make sure we're building that in maybe to the beginning of the simulation instead of leaving it to the end.
On the graphic that you have on the screen now, I'm looking at the large colored rectangles. Am I looking at two bridge abutments and a center pier?
So this is a little bit of a goof on my end. This is something I noticed as I was rehearsing before I came in. But yeah, to answer your question, so this new bridge proposal, the proposed bridge will have 3 spans. And
I'm only seeing 2 spans.
Exactly. And so I am missing one. If you can imagine, I tried to use the laser earlier, but it didn't work super well. Do you see, and then use the mouse. Oh yeah, here we go. So there will be, so this is an abutment here. Mm-hmm. This will be the terminus of the southwest end of the bridge. There will be piers here and piers here. And then we will have one more abutment approximately right here that I did not include. I drew these boxes to kind of try to illustrate the visibility at the intersection. This one doesn't play as much of a role because you don't have to really look past that as you're making a move because it really only affects these right turns up here. But there should be kind of one more right in here or so.
Okay, I thought I heard you say earlier that having more piers improves visibility for people traveling through the intersection. I don't quite understand that. If it was just a clear span, everybody would be able to see in every direction. So can you clarify that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a great kind of visualization question. And you are correct that if we had one clear span, given that it was sufficient in length, it would be superior to a three-span bridge. Unfortunately, with the constraint of the project budget and also the thickness of the girders that would be required to hold that bridge up, that one really long span, and at this length, this opening that is shown here on this concept becomes prohibitively expensive. And so a single span bridge would have an abutment really almost right on the back of the sidewalk here and the back of the sidewalk here, and also be very thick. And so that by adding these piers and kind of giving us a chance to stretch the bridge out, let's say you were waiting to make a left-hand turn down here, you're going northbound on Hover, you want to turn onto southwestbound 119. Having the pier back here allows you to see over towards this area. It's a little hard to demonstrate, but just know, this is your questions. You're spot on in terms of the concerns and the puzzling aspects of how we're trying to fit this bridge in with visibility for all the different directions. These are things that we're all discussing during our technical meetings.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking about left turns, and I'm guessing that there would not be any permissive left turns at this intersection. All left turns would be protected.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so I think visibility becomes less of an issue then, obviously. All right, thanks very much.
So, a couple questions I have. So the span is going to be both directions going over Hover?
So the span is only for southwestbound or Boulder-bound traffic. If you're heading into Longmont on 119, you'll cross that grade like
Gotcha.
you do today.
Okay. All right. Clear. Go ahead.
All right, thanks again. Sorry, just a couple more questions. Concerning the Hawk signal, we have an example of just a traffic light on 9th Avenue where you push the button and then you wait and it goes, green, yellow, red. So maybe that might work better because people are used to just a normal traffic light, just for saving costs. But then also has kind of RTD and BR, because the project is hopefully going to be done by the time BRT is functioning. Has there been a lot of talk with RTD?
Yeah, so in all these meetings where the city gets together with CDOT, RTD is also in those meetings as well. If we go back, actually, it's really, the color doesn't show through very well. Let's see if I've got it here. I might not, but if you really squint, the southernmost lane on 119 as you come into Longmont, so on the sort of the left third of the bottom, I can use the mouse. Oh, thank you, Phil. You might spy here that says bus. And so this is going to be basically a queue jump lane for BRT. It'll come in here. They'll get their own signal time to basically make a wide left turn across these other lanes while no one else is moving in order to get into Hover Street and continue up north. So yeah, BRT has been part of this project every step of the way. That's one of the really key new links that this project's going to make. I think if you really zoom out and ask, well, what is this project doing for Boulder County and Longmont and the communities here? It's basically saying, today, if you want to drive or if you want to go between Longmont and Boulder, you're either on a soft gravel path that meanders on a bike, you got a long walk, or you're getting on a Bolt bus somewhere with long headways, or you're driving. But after we complete this 119 project, there'll be BRT, there'll be a paved bike path, way more opportunities to shift your mode if you're making that commute pattern like so many people are.
And that's where a comment to Board Member McInerney about the development to the south is I would hope that traffic is so backed up on 119 that they're taking the BRT because it's not going to be that far of a walk to get to that bus. But then also it's a very, I reiterate this sometimes with the Downs-Thompson paradox. This is off of Cornell. claims that traffic will increase without limit until the option of public transport or any other form of transport becomes faster than the equivalent trip of a car. So I think, BRT will be the way to go for all those residents.
I had a thought when I was looking at this just now, further thought about the pedestrian bike bridge over that you've considered and it being so far back. Have you considered adding stairs at the corner and having two ways of getting onto that bridge?
Yeah, so stairs were something that I think that they don't meet sort of our. I'm trying to think of a way to phrase this. The ADA concern is really what drives the use of long ramps. And certainly you could add stairs. I think from a maintenance perspective, it gets really challenging to keep them clear and make sure that they're not, getting caked with snow and ice. But yeah, that's something that I have not seen stairs in other places used. But that's something that I could definitely relay as well.
Yeah, I mean, yes, we have snow and ice, and there might be some times where that is not great, but the rest of the year, stairs would work
It's
just fine.
Great for fitness too, right?
Yeah, it's great, exactly.
Yeah.
You could maybe, I don't know, but if that's the reason you're discounting that as a possible route, then stairs would certainly alleviate that for most people. Of course, got the accessibility part, but for those people, they could still use a ramp and go that further distance. But for everyone else who wants to get really fit, they could use the stairs and reduce that distance.
Yeah, and these are all things that we can pass along to when we have our big review.
Okay, thank you.
One last question. Yeah. So the hawk signal is going to kind of be adjacent to a railroad crossing, and then you're going to have storage issues on the left hand going on to southbound 119. Any concerns from CDOT from that standpoint? Because you could potentially have motorists who aren't going to stop because of the railroad crossing and the light.
Yeah, definitely. That was one of the sort of the chief concerns that we had to clear before we even got to the point that we could put, red colored markings across a road. That is something that we have looked at in terms of queuing is that, okay, are we going to queue because of the hawk signal onto the railroad? Are we going to queue back towards Hover? And what their modeling found for the CDOT design team, their traffic engineer, they found that was not a concern even at the 2045 volumes. So, I'm inclined to believe their modeling. These guys are very good at what they do, but it's definitely something that we'll continue to carry that concern because especially with the railroad, I know that if I don't say something, I've got other projects where I work with them that they'll make sure I hear from them. So that's definitely a concern that we'll take seriously and make sure that we're not building something that is going to cause us an operational headache that we would maybe, worst case, have to remove infrastructure that we built. Okay, will do.
Sorry, just as you mentioned railroad, are you building it into the fact that we're going to have more trains going by hopefully with the Front Range passenger rail?
Yeah, that's been a source of discussion. This project interfaces directly with BNSF because they have some really close proximity rail crossings in other parts of the project limits. Definitely down as you move towards Boulder, they're a lot closer. So I believe that the project themselves or as a whole is coordinating with BNSF and that they understand the train volumes might be increasing. That is definitely a complicated subject that is a whole other world that we're trying to figure out what the right number is in terms of number of trains. For a lot of projects in the city. BNSF's told us that there could be passenger rail, there could not be passenger rail. Freight might go up, freight might go down, and so we're working hard to try to figure out what exactly the number is. But we do know that is something that we all are hoping for because that would be a great regional improvement is to have that passenger rail access. And so we with an eye towards the future, we're definitely thinking about the possibility of extra trains.
Okay.
Well, as you probably know better than anyone, I think you're from England, correct?
No way.
Is the rumor anyway. Is that those passenger rail trains are going to be like 3-car sets. So really short, pretty fast, and through the intersection very quick. So the gates will come down, the train will come through, very short train, and then the gates will come back up. So it's not going to be like the freight trains that rumble through town. And while those are running, BNSF will be turning off their traffic because it still will be the single line, at least in the foreseeable future, will be the one single line, as we heard from Karen Banker, I believe, last month. So we're not going to have the double track piece of that. So the freight will have to hold, and we heard three trains a day, up to maybe 10 trains a day. So initially, it's going to be a pretty slow startup, and those passenger trains will kind of take over the freight line for those small windows of time when they run. And so ideally the wait times will be less.
That would be great. I'm just thinking it seems like almost a perfect storm for creating a lot of congestion with having, if you're at rush hour, you got trains, even though they're really short and they're going across, but they're all going to be most of them are going to be happening at high peak air times. You're going to have lots of cars, and then as a bike or pedestrian, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, this is just not a fun place to be, and it's just going to encourage more of those not so safe routes. But anyway, it seems like it's going to be creating more problems. I don't know, but I'm sure you're modeling it.
There's a lot going on. Yeah, your instincts are correct that there's a huge nexus of things that are all happening all at once, and that's something that we're aware of, and we're trying to work our way as best we can through with our engineering solutions that we can come up with.
Okay, my last question, I promise. Have you considered other type of intersection, like a roundabout at Hover and 119? I have to mention roundabouts at least once because, I'm from England, so roundabouts are our favorite.
Yeah, I think there may have actually been, and Phil, I might lean on you a little bit on this one. Is there one time that we had just to rule, thinking maybe it would work, maybe it wouldn't work, but just let's check to see? Have we ever considered a roundabout here, or is the skew too great?
Actually, in that Southwest Operations study that you mentioned from 2016, I think it was, 2018, we looked at roundabout. We also looked at a peanut about. So it's kind of a double, kind of a double,
bone.
Yep. So a number of really creative, innovative things have been looked at for this intersection, and they were dismissed for whatever reasons. But I can send you the study as well as a follow-up.
Yeah,
and you can kind of look at what was reviewed, and then CDOT, when they were looking at cost savings, they relooked at some of those plans as well. So they relooked at our Southwest Operations study just to see if there's any kind of glimmer of hope for ways to get around all the utilities in the area. And of course, expanding out really does start to it starts to push out your utilities again and starts to buy property. And so those are two things that CDOT's really adverse to.
Okay, yeah. Roundabouts are the way to go, but anyway.
I'll build a model and I'll put a roundabout there, and we can imagine. All right, thank you, everybody. I'm really excited about this project. And like I said, I'll keep my eyes peeled towards things I can share with all of you, especially once we get to September and we have that 30% design submittal. A lot of the questions that you asked about, are we doing this, are we not doing that, we'll have a clearer picture. So I look forward to hopefully coming back and updating you again on this project. Thank you.
Hello, board members. Nice to see you. Cami Pillar Edson. Oh, we lost the screen. Did we lose it?
I think you're at the end of my presentation, so maybe just press.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Yep. Cami Pillar Edson, Vision Zero Coordinator for the city. We also have a presentation tonight to go over the Vision Zero Action Plan timeline and some engagement discussions with you. We really out of timeliness for when we plan to start the Vision Zero action plan with the public, we would like to talk with you and spend most of our time tonight talking about engagement and preferences first. And then I, at the end, will go over the timeline, which you can somewhat see here because we figured it's going to be tiny to see on the screen or on a small printout. But noticing the time after that wonderful discussion that I'm so glad you had, if we need to come back and talk about the timeline next meeting, we're prepared to do that considering the rest of the agenda. I just want to honor that we can be flexible, but we really want to prioritize the engagement conversation tonight with you all. And so on that note, I want to start off by normalizing a moment of silence. Vision Zero really wants to bring light that what we're trying to do is save lives and save people's lives from being drastically altered because of the severity of injuries. And so we figure at all of our meetings, we're going to start doing this to really kind of put the people first when we're talking about this work. So let's just do that and then we'll come back. Thank you for that. I want to take a minute to introduce Dylan Zamora Silva officially. I think he's been here a couple times. I've done a quick update or away from the back, but we're really lucky here at the city to have a true engagement specialist. He's developing a community engagement program for the entire city, but we're also lucky enough to have him dedicated to Vision Zero. So he's working on more than just Vision Zero, but he's really going to guide our efforts in how do we do community engagement as intentionally and as robustly and as well done as we possibly can for this Vision Zero action plan to build off the TMP that was just completed. So he's going to walk you through some questions and then you'll hear back from me later if time permits. So Dylan, if you'd like to come up and introduce yourself.
Hello, board members. Dylan Zamora Silva, Community Engagement Specialist with the City of Longmont. So I'll just go through our presentation here. I'll try to give Cami some time because I think the timeline is really important, but definitely want to get your input and we'll kind of kick off the engagement piece. So just want to establish a baseline, essentially just defining engagement for the Vision Zero action plan. So community engagement being an intentional process with the purpose of working in inclusive and respectful ways to shape decisions, actions, and impacts or change. And obviously this process needs to be purposeful, goal-driven, trust and relationship focused, values based, and people centered, inclusive and equity centered, and impact and outcome oriented. And this is a slide that we've been showing the Senior Citizens Advisory Board, the task force. So we're trying to kind of just establish this baseline with all of our groups. Levels of community engagement. This is the city's framework for engagement. You might have seen it in the past. So we just building off of the bottom is inform. So give information to the community. We move up to consult, obtain feedback from community, involve, community input influences the process, partner, we work as equals. And on the right side, you'll see essentially the promises that each one of these sections of the pyramid bring. So starting from the top, we'll work with you as equal partners, which is a shared decision making, less commonly used. We will work to ensure community concerns are understood and reflected in decision making. So essentially, this is an opportunity to contribute and influence the process or the project or proposition. Ultimately, the city is still the decision maker, but we do consider how the community wants to approach or decide on certain elements. We'll then go to consult. So we will consider your comments and decision making. This is where we get feedback from the community. The city is still the decision maker, but we want to include the community's feedback to have guidance essentially. And then at the very bottom, we will provide community with accurate, balanced, and objective information. The city is a decision maker, but this is the most commonly used, typically newsletters or press releases, or even the city website. So what will the Vision Zero Equitable Action Plan engagement strive for? Essentially, we'd want to partner with internal and external subject matter experts, community leaders, and liaisons through the steering committee, involve our community in the action plan development through our task force, consult our community members about their engagement preferences and concerns generally, and this might be where individuals who may not have time to serve on groups or task force might fall under, and essentially inform community members about Vision Zero concepts in plain language, ensuring informed input, and also keeping them updated throughout their process. So I'll get into the discussion piece, and I want to preface it with some slides. So essentially, this is not an exhaustive list, but essentially who is the highest risk? For obviously it would be youth, young drivers, older adults, people with disabilities, and just in general, people outside of vehicles. I really like this picture. This was at the Youth Life Skills Fair. It was a great activity. I asked the youth essentially how do they stay safe, and really the objective here was to understand where they're at in conceptualizing what safety means, and a lot of them did get a lot of ideas from my booth. I was dressed in all neon, so a lot of wear bright clothes or wear helmets. I had helmets on the table, and then also discussions that I was having. So I was using it kind of as a litmus test to see if they were picking up concepts. And this ultimately, and I'll pull up a closer picture, this ultimately will hopefully guide how we strategize to engage with youth, but also keep an educational piece consciously within those engagement practices and activities and all of that. So that was a really fun day for me. And I think the kids that participated did end up learning and giving us information to essentially craft a safer people's, maybe like curriculum or something like that, or just understand where they're at. So what groups are often left out of engagement processes? Many groups are routinely left out of engagement processes, and it's often because traditional methods like public meetings and online surveys do not always account for barriers like language, literacy rates, time, trust, or access. And it's not to say that those methods aren't useful, but we're really trying to set a precedent, just go above and beyond, and make sure we're perpetuating maybe like a culture of engagement, or just making sure we're meeting people where they're at. So just as a general list, historically marginalized communities, youth, people with disabilities, people of color, people with lower income, and non-English speakers generally experience a lot of these gaps. Who would be most interested in engaging? I mean, we typically see a lot of the loudest voices come to the top. So already engaged community members, organizer vocal groups, passionate community members, individuals comfortable with traditional engagement approaches, people with ample time, and people who just enjoy civic engagement. And I think that these people will be a huge help throughout the engagement process, and they will help inform as they always do, but also, kind of acknowledging that we want to include those who may not always show up. So who would be most impacted? Just very generally, again, people who travel through the high injury network. So this is the highest risk, highest speeds, and also the residential areas around these the high injury networks, the mainly main street or streets or roads that essentially have really high speed. So also people who live and work in Longmont, multimodal travelers, drivers, underserved communities, and people experiencing homelessness tend to be the most impacted. And I just adopted this from Martin Luther King Jr. Unsafe travel anywhere is a threat to safe travel everywhere. So that's really the kind of energy we want to bring if we're really trying to get serious and get down to zero. And I think, I'm very optimistic that our engagement process will help inform a lot of the nuances and help people really participate in informing us and helping make decisions about safe roads in their communities. So really boiling down to it, I would really appreciate your input. If you had any internal or external partner agencies that you all think would be ideal as steering committee members, so people who would be knowledgeable or would like to partner or have really great perspectives. Again, that's just a general list there in the bullet points. But I would love to open just to see what you all think. If you have any recommendations, I would love to hear them.
Are you talking to Commuting Solutions?
We have not talked to them, but they're definitely on our list. Mm-hmm.
NGLA would be the other one.
Yep,
Neighborhood groups.
for sure.
Maybe even my nonprofit as well, SRL.
All right, so I'll move on, and thank you for your feedback. And then there's one. Oh, go ahead, sir.
What about our center? Would they have some perspectives that would be useful to you?
Yeah, definitely. I think we had one woman who might either volunteers at the Our Center show up for a task force meeting. So that is a group that we are going to be reaching out to. All right, so
If you're trying to talk to groups involved in homelessness, maybe like the in-between.
yeah, the in-between, for sure. We are also talking with the St. Vrain Community Council, so there's a lot of those nonprofits that gather. So we'll be trying to bring them in as well.
Are you also working with any Hispanic groups?
I think that one's a bit trickier, at least currently, but we are trying to we're really trying to leverage social capital and connections to try and almost like be introduced to specific groups or people who might be interested, and really focusing on the relationship building. So I think that Hispanic groups is definitely on our kind of aim. All right, I'll continue. So yeah, any other thoughts or comments? If you all have any questions, I'd be happy to take them. And then after this slide, I think I have a couple more slides, and then I'll pass it over to Cami. The other slides are just more updates.
Thanks for the presentation. I have been to a few of the Vision Zero meetings, and I do appreciate all the engagement, all the activities, the way that you're collecting the feedback from the residents. So I appreciate how lively the meetings are. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. Alrighty. So really the last few slides on my end are the community walk audit. Again, it's the 26th from 10 to 12:30. There is a RSVP link. I think if you all got the printout, it'll be on there as well. So feel free to RSVP there. And we hope to make it fun and experiential. And also I hope to collaborate with some of our city staff to bring in their expertise and talk about the built environment. And then this is just kind of closing out here. Our next task force meeting is August 7th. So feel free to join. We have done pizza for the last two times. So we'll probably, it won't be pizza next time, but it was really good pizza. But anyways, August 7th. So we hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. Okay, so I wanted to come, you've heard from us giving just sort of quick updates along the way, but I wanted to kind of give you the whole picture of what we've been doing and where we think we're going. And so I know this is pretty hard to see on a screen, so hopefully you each have a handout in front of you that's a little bit larger. And just to orient you to what we're looking at, there's a key at the bottom, if you're wondering what all of my little acronyms are. So the key's at the bottom. But I really wanted to show you what have we been working on basically this past year. In the middle, you'll see a star with sort of some yellow columns. That's really where we are now, with the goal of trying to have a public launch of our Vision Zero equitable engagement plan that Dylan's been talking about, trying to, bring these engagement approaches to life to engage with our community in September. So to walk you through what has been going on, like you said, you've heard snippets, is the top green rows are really focusing on funding. I think you've heard me talk about, or maybe have heard through other channels, is that we applied right after being hired here. We applied for federal funding. We were awarded the federal funding. It was called the Safe Streets for All grant. We got a contract. We returned it. They were going to sign it on the federal side, and we would then bring it to the council to accept it and get signatures. And right in the middle of that process is when the administration change happened and all of the federal contracts basically were paused come January. So we have not yet been able to sign a contract or have received those federal funds. So those have been currently kind of in wait or in pause this entire year so far. So if you go down to the second row where it says Action Plan Funding Plan B, essentially what we have decided to do internally is self-fund the action plan, since we have no idea how long getting through the federal process is going to take. It could happen very quickly. It could take 6 more months to who knows. There has been some advancement just in the last week activity around federal funding, but right now it's really being looked at the legal level, what's legal, what's not legal. There are lawsuits going on. There's counter lawsuits going on all around this federal funding. So again, we don't know when we're going to get this funding. So we are committed as a city and a staff to get this Vision Zero Equitable Engagement Plan done. And we are going to self-fund it, at least with the $2025 that we have budgeted this year, to at least start with phase 1 of what we're calling the action plan. And we think we'll have to break it up into a couple phases and then ask for phase 2 funding to City Council for next year. So if you go down to the blue bars, that's sort of where you'll see we've been calling this kind of whole wait time, why we've been figuring out how long it's going to take to get our federal dollars. We've been trying to, what can we get accomplished and get a head start on this whole time. So we've been calling it our pre-work phase. So we've been doing a lot of data analysis, a lot of community engagement, a lot of stakeholder relationship building, anything we can to sort of give us a leg up that whenever we get funding to start, we will be prepared to go quickly and get the plan done as quickly as possible. So through the task force, for those of you who have come, you've seen some data being presented. We've done a lot of community engagement, talking with those engaged community members already. So that's the work we've been doing in the pre-work phase. And so you'll see in June, we're hoping, as you can see down SM, to launch. We have a story map that has really looked at what are our top 10 types of fatal crashes. We've got that sorted out. Looking at countermeasures that match addressing those fatal crashes. So hopefully that will be published online to start beginning that transparent data sharing. So all of what we've been doing in this pre-work phase can begin to be shared with the public. This month we'll have that up. We're also working on a database, a crash database that we hope to have finished in the next month or two that will help eventually streamline our crash analyses processes that we go through every year to produce the crash report. That's something that the traffic engineering team has really been helping take the lead on, and we're right in there supporting it. Because once that crash database is built, it will also help us launch what we're calling is a dashboard, a public-facing Vision Zero dashboard that will also be another way to share the data that we know about, explaining to the larger public what is going on in city, what are the needs, and how are the projects we're bringing forward connected to those needs. And then we're working on a fact sheet. So hopefully the results of all this pre-work you will see the fruits of those labors come to life this summer, all in attempt to have that all ready and available when we launch the Vision Zero Action Plan development process publicly. So phase 1, as I mentioned, is going to hopefully be this fall into winter, where we will bring forward, here's what we already know, community, give us your thoughts. Here are some project types that we're thinking of. It might be kind of hotspot type project responses, systemic type responses, systematic type responses. We're going to need to do some more data analysis to round out a project list that we would also then maybe bring back in phase 2. But the idea is that hopefully, because we have so much of a head start on kind of pre-writing and pre-doing a lot of the work through the planning process, it's not going to take us long to complete the process once we get to that public launch point. So moving down into the orange section, that is really kind of a summary that you can see where we launched our Vision Zero task force meetings last fall. We have been working on website updates. We have been meeting with a bunch of different city advisory boards, as Dylan has mentioned, key stakeholder meetings, and we are hopefully going to be launching a version of some Vision Zero classes where Dylan will be doing the external classes, kind of providing that general education to a wider group of public beyond our task force about what is Vision Zero, what does that mean as a way to get them engaged and bought into helping us develop the plan. And then I'm going to have a matched version essentially internally for staff that we'll start training other staff on as well to make sure that everyone understands what Vision Zero is and how to effectively engage in the action plan development process. So bringing it back down to really kind of what we're here for is that in the tan squares is really sort of our action plan development. What's left to do is we are hopefully bringing the first official Vision Zero annual update to City Council in August. We want to use that as a way to launch the public engagement process for the plan. We are also going to be developing and bringing forward a steering committee officially for the action plan development, where we'll have key stakeholder partners who really are subject matter experts that will help guide through the process. So we'll have the public engagement piece as well as those subject matter experts pieces through the steering committee. So as Dylan asked, if you have any great ideas of agencies we should tap for that, or individuals, go ahead and reach out to us at any point if you think of something after tonight. And so there'll be a formal invite to the steering committee. And again, we'll be giving council updates, advisory board updates all along, especially through each phase, kind of the typical planning process. But if all goes according to plan at this point, unless we're derailed by another unexpected delay that, we could not predict, just like we could not predict the federal pause and how long it was taking, or the lawsuits. We hope to take the plan to adoption next April in the spring. It would coincide nicely with the 2-year adoption or the anniversary of the adoption of the Vision Zero resolution if we do hit that April mark. So that's really kind of the big picture view of what we've been doing and where we plan to go. So you're going to start seeing a lot more, I think, information probably on our social media sites, press releases, all these things, where we're going to basically actualize all the feedback we've gotten back, not only from you, but from our other key stakeholders of how to do engagement well to get some really good turnout for the Vision Zero Equitable Engagement Plan development process. So this is our big picture timeline. Open to questions, I guess, at this point about our timeline or our process, if any.
So when new projects are coming in, so April, if we're starting to have new projects come on, the design phase for Kyle coming up with new projects, are you already working with the city staff to make some Vision Zero accommodations for some of these projects that might happen before the launch?
Yeah, great question. So, as Kyle mentioned, as an example, we're already working on some other grant applications that we've been co-working on together to identify some locations for some specific pedestrian mid-block crossing or unsignalized intersections. We'll get more involved probably with Alex now, especially since someone decided to retire. Get more involved in the conversations of the existing projects as well. We've been key at the 21st and Main was really the first project kind of from early on in the process that we've been involved with. So we're sort of trying to catch up with all the existing CIP projects to make ourselves available to give input. So we're trying to jump in where we can and influence the process where we can, but I do think city staff understands that pedestrians and bicyclists should be the priority. I don't think I need to be there for them to know that. They get that already at this point. I think it's just also, as Alex pointed out, working with some of the external partners. The local community seemed to be more primed and more ready to make more significant changes more than some of our state or federal partners are. So it's a bit of a challenge to try to sync that up of we're asking them to meet us where we're at and they're not quite ready to do that. So we're doing what we can. So we're getting involved in as many projects. Again, we're trying to launch this process, but there is only one of us at this, two of us at this point. So being involved in every project has been a little bit difficult to be as in the weeds as maybe we would like to be with every project, but we're doing the best we can to at least be aware, give input, give reviews, whatever it might be. But we'll be more and more involved as new projects come involved from the very beginning versus projects like this one, which have been already in the works for years and years and years and years.
I had another thought about another group you could involve. Are you talking to the school district?
Yes, great suggestion, but yes, they're definitely on our list.
Okay,
Yes.
just double checking because kids are important.
Yeah. Agreed.
Of funding Plan B, the self-funding,
Mhm.
do those funds come from the street tax revenues?
So from the street fund, yeah, Vision Zero has been given a small budget each year. So we are using the Vision Zero budget to, instead of maybe putting it into a construction project, we're using those funds to get the plan developed.
So is that the extent of the funding you're working
Yeah.
with this year?
Yep.
And you expect probably the same thing will occur in
Yeah.
2026?
Yeah, since the city council made that, had that resolution on Vision Zero in 2023,
Right.
we've allocated dollars into the budget based on that decision from city council since then, and that went through TAB at the time, so we've just been following up with that as far as those street fund sales tax dollars. You're correct.
Yeah, seems like an excellent allocation
Yeah.
of street tax revenues.
We had some other planning projects that we thought we'd be doing in 2025, like a system-wide speed limit study. So we're going to do that hopefully next year while we get the plan done first. And then, so some of the other planning projects that we thought we were going to be originally using with $25 are just sort of being shifted to 26 so we can get this plan done with the existing Vision Zero dollars.
I've got a question on funding. If the federal funding is completely cut off, which I suppose is possible, is the city prepared to self-fund it, or are we going to have to scale back any of the effort for Vision Zero and things associated with it?
So let me see if I understand your question right, just to make sure. If the federal funding grant that we got, it had 3 projects named in it. If we don't ever get that, it is not the only funding source that can fund these 3 projects. We are prioritizing getting the action plan done first. The other 2 projects are also shelved at this point for 2026 and have been put in the 26 budget request to also self-fund if we need to, instead of just waiting for these federal dollars that we just don't know how long it's going to take to sort through all the legal processes to have them show up. And they're worth it dollars if they do show up. There's other considerations well above and beyond SS4A as far as what the city may decide to do around federal funds. Our contract just happened to be the first that got the language under the new Trump administration with their contract language. So it's just now kind of sparking council and leadership to have the conversation now that we see what the actual language is. So,
Great, thank you.
yeah.
How much money is being held back?
Yeah, good question. So we had a $1.2 million grant award and a $300,000 match from the city. So other projects and other departments and other, disciplines have, I think, bigger contracts than ours. And again, this is federal money at the time. So I'll just want to clarify, the source of the money is great. The source of the money and what the funds were intended for in the SS4A funding pot is not being questioned in any way. It's just the contract language that is causing all of the legal back and forth that has come up now. It's not any of the direct funding sources themselves that are causing the need to have further discussions around what do we do with these contracts if this is what the current language looks like versus what the Biden administration language looked like. You're welcome. Yes, thank you all. I did have one more slide. I kind of forgot about it. Just to share, this is what we have left to do before we get to launch. You can see it is, obviously, we're going to keep working and maintaining those connections with all the advisory boards and groups. We do want to keep talking to everybody about their community engagement preferences. Like I said, we need to do a lot of our baseline data sharing. We obviously need to identify consultants. So as soon as we can get an RFP out for consultant we're doing that. We're just trying to wrap up a few community engagement key conversations with partners about their preferences so we can round out what that request for proposals looks like, what we ask of consultants. We will be identifying the steering committee, so I'm sure some of you will see that. And then we're working on developing some educational marketing materials just around the development plan itself, and then hopefully we'll be launching. So that it now really done. That's it. Yes.
I've got another question.
Sure.
With the red light and the speed cameras.
Oh yeah.
Will we be adding any Vision Zero language to either the warning letters or the materials of public safety do give folks initially? Is that part of that plan?
Yeah, so we're actually working on an entire safe speed campaign that will reinforce and build upon what most people see now has only been an enforcement-focused message. So we want to get those other messages out around why speed is important and reducing speeds and all of that, and how these speed cameras is just one way to help us reach our goal. We're also going to be looking at the official language on the documents that people receive if they get a ticket, because that can also be adjusted. We quite didn't hit the deadline of getting that reviewed and previewed before the system was launched, but we've seen the basic boilerplate was fine, but we thought there was an opportunity to also add some language. We've been giving feedback to the police department about what language they could add on their FAQ page as we've come across it. And so through our communications team and their communications team, we're working together, and we just expect to keep adding more additional framing and language to have it go beyond just an enforcement lensed message, which is important, but we all here agree that we know it's bigger than just an enforcement lensed message. And we did hopefully, we had hoped that PD would be here tonight to give you an update. Something came up, so we will try to have them come back at a future meeting so they can talk directly about, give their update directly.
I was just wondering what type of other education you're embarking on in terms of helping all people be more safe on the streets. So like a bigger education drive, rather than like, are you going to do like webinars, or like just trying to give more information about how people can be safer on the streets?
I think one of the key focus areas within the engagement or within the action plan development is going to be asking community what ways would they like to get education, so we can make sure that it is, once it's developed, delivered. I think, through the SAFE system, which we've talked about prior, safer roads, safer people, safer, speeds, all of that, there'll be educational focused campaigns and materials developed within each of those safe system buckets. But how and where to get that out is something that we hope to leverage through the action plan development process as well. So whenever we do get to those being ready to be delivered, we've already engaged with the community about how and where and who's interested. So I think hopefully it will be a robust mix, a diversified mix of opportunities that ultimately come forward.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, education is
key.
Very, very important.
Yeah, key to this. And the first thing that we'll hopefully see is we're working with regional partners right now on a Vision Zero mark, essentially a graphic that in plain language is going to define what Vision Zero is, that we can use in all materials moving forward and all educational pieces, but it will look the same in every single community within Boulder County. It'll just be colored, tailored per agency. So there'll be the Longmont branded version, there'll be the Lafayette branded version. And from there, the idea is that it could grow into a Vision Zero, just basic education campaign in and of itself. But we're starting at least with a graphic that plain language simplifies what is Vision Zero, just at its simplest core, because we know it's not a message or a term that people widely understand yet.
Sorry, I wasn't at the last Vision Zero meeting. I was just wondering if you ever came up with a new name for the task force. I was just curious.
Not yet. It got tabled for this last meeting, but it's going to get picked back up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious.
So no decision made yet. Yeah. Lots of opinions. Great. Thank you all.
So, Kaylee, we're not going to do the public safety and speed camera update, I take it, correct?
Correct. Unfortunately, like Cami said, they weren't able to make it tonight.
Okay. Okay. No action items? All right. Let's start with comments. We'll start on that side.
Well, as always, I love it when we go almost to 8. So, but I guess, Phil, will we see you next month?
I did not apply.
Okay. Well,
sorry.
Well,
I
you
thought
said you're retiring.
I will be
at
here
the end
next
of
month, and
July.
we'll talk a little bit about next month's meeting
Okay.
as well. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well,
I thought you meant to be on the TAB.
Oh no,
so.
yeah, no. So I'm glad we still get one more month. So, but yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you everyone who presented today. It's always good to hear about what's going on and have the opportunity to give comments and feedback. Phil, congratulations for retiring. You'll be, I'm sure, very missed at the city. You've been a great resource and for many years, of course, and I think it'll be hard to fill your shoes. So just thank you for all your work.
All the updates this evening. I'm finally starting to get the 119 Hover intersection concept I'm wrapping my head around that one. So thanks again, Alex. And great to hear that Vision Zero is moving forward, even in the absence of any federal funding. So keep up the good work there.
Thank you, Phil, for all your service that you've given to the city. You will be missed from the city staff and ourselves and all the residents that don't know all the hard work that you do. Thank you for all the presentations. Alex, thanks for all the questions. I know that ran pretty long, but appreciate the time to answer some of our questions. I do want to emphasize that we do want to prioritize pedestrian safeties and cyclist safeties, where we're focusing on cars, but let's focus on pedestrians and cyclists first. But thank you for all your time. Always appreciate the presentations.
Yeah, I basically echo what everybody on the board has said. And Alex, thank you for the Hover presentation. I realize it's a balancing act when you're dealing with CDOT, as I've dealt with them before as well. And Cammie and Kaylee, thank you for all the information, everybody on staff, and also the Bike to Work. Thank you for that. And Phil, we can't replace you, so we're not even going to try. All right. We don't have our council member Yarbrough here, so items for the upcoming agenda for the next scheduled meeting, which would be July 14th.
Yeah, really quick. Kaylee and I were kind of talking about this. We've been approached by the mayor that she wants to do a rail meeting at the museum at about the same time I think our TAB will be next month. We're waiting to see what happens. We're waiting to see what the timing is. We're waiting to see a bunch of different things. But if that comes together to be on the 14th, we'll then poll this group probably via email just about, should we have a TAB separate on either the 7th or the 21st? Or do you want to do a combined TAB meeting with the rail meeting so that we can just all be there and that'll be the one meeting for the month? Of course, that throws a little wrench into the works. Kaylee and I were kind of talking about, well, how does that work with our schedule coming up, right? So July is technically our business meeting where we have our new member. Yeah, we'll find out pretty soon about that. And to see if there's somebody who got re-upped as well. So we're waiting to hear. We're waiting to hear that, and July will be that. It's supposed to be that first meeting. So we'd really like to have, I think, that business meeting and vote for a new chair, vice chair, those kind of things, and then start talking about the business of the year. And we have other items on there on our schedule as well. So a lot going on. But we'll keep you apprised of kind of what's going on as we learn more. So maybe it would be good to go over your schedules right now to see if the 7th or the 21st would work, or if that's even something you'd want to talk about.
Well,
Or if one of them works better than the other.
Yeah, why don't we just ask the board members to look at, just as you said, the
Yeah.
7th, the 21st, and maybe
Okay.
what we can do is we can do an email poll just to say which day is better, and we'll find out from everybody. That would probably be the easiest.
Phil, can you tell us more about this July 14th meeting?
I really wish I could. I don't know a lot about it right now, except that the mayor would like to reserve a room in the museum and have, I believe, the Front Range Passenger Rail folks, as well as the state folks from the governor's office, come and really explain kind of those next steps. Your letter was accepted by the board, so your letter did make it to the board meeting by May 28th. I did not hear back, but just that it did get received, so thank you for that again. There was no real vote. I think there may have been some confusion on what was happening, transpiring at that May 28th board meeting for RTD, but this one seems to be about that real request in July, in a July-August timeframe to the RTD board about actually spending dollars. So I think this group wants to come in and get your support, or get the city's support, city citizens' support about talking or going, and how do you approach RTD, the board, and get that support, understanding that there's folks in the southern portions of RTD who don't really know what's happening and don't really maybe have that full vesting in the issues that we do up north, and we've been struggling with this for 20 years now. So that idea about how do you reach out, it'll be probably at least two of our board members from RTD. So Lynn Geisinger, who couldn't make it she didn't know she was she couldn't come to the first meeting in April when we had RTD, and didn't know that Ms. Binker would come for public invite to be heard last meeting. So we'd love to have her come back, but this might be that opportunity.
Okay. So that's pending then for the next meeting. And if there's anything else, I think we can adjourn before 8 o'clock. Great. Thank you, everybody.